Well, Saint Valentine was a Christian priest in 3rd century Rome who, among other things, was known for his incredible love for people and his deep conviction in the truth of the gospel. The story of Saint Valentine really begins around 270 AD with the Emperor of Rome having a serious problem. He has people on his eastern border and on his northern border deciding they don't want to be part of his empire anymore. So they decide, you know what, we're just going to revolt and we're going to leave. Claudius can't let that happen, so he needs more men in his army. And more than that, he needs men who are more committed than any soldiers in the world. He thinks, and his advisors think, well, let's take away the distraction of a wife and of a family. So marriage is hereby outlawed. This doesn't go over well with the young men and young women of Rome who pine after their lovers and just want to spend the rest of their lives with them. They don't want to go off and fight in another war. And it doesn't settle well with Valentine either, who, as a Christian, believes that marriage is sacred and holy and a right thing in the sight of God. He decides that he's going to marry people regardless of what the emperor says and regardless of the consequences. So he meets people in the dead of night, just the 3 of them, and he marries them in secret. Couple after couple come to him, and there's some accounts that even say that Valentine gave them cut out hearts of parchment to remind the young grooms of their love for their wives. And that's, of course, where the tradition we have today comes from. But eventually, word gets out that Valentine's breaking the law. He's marrying people, and Rome's not happy about it. So they arrest him and throw him in jail, a large jail in Rome that's governed by a man named Asterius. This doesn't seem to upset Valentine as much as you would think for being thrown in jail. So before long, he's captured the affection and the admiration of almost everybody in the prison, jailer included. In fact, Asterius thinks so highly of Valentine that he asks him to read to his daughter Julia and teach her. Julia was blind, had been since birth. So Valentine accepted the offer graciously, and in short order, he and Julia became close friends. Time passes, and Valentine not only becomes closer and closer friends with Julia as she grows, but he actually ends up leading many people within the prison to Christ. Even the jailer Asterius, he becomes so on fire for God that he ends up evangelizing his whole family. And before anybody knows it, we have a whole prominent Roman family that comes over to the gospel. This catches Rome's attention, and to such a degree that the emperor himself says, all right, I need to meet this guy. Bring him before me. So Valentine is brought into the palace of Rome, brought before the throne of Claudius II. And it doesn't take long for him to see why everybody's so fascinated by Valentine. The guy's amazing. The guy's a paragon. He epitomizes love in every way, and he's also incredibly wise. He strikes Claudius as the type of guy that he would want as one of his advisors, not as a criminal to be thrown in jail. So he says, Valentine, I'll make you a deal. I will pardon you of all your crimes, and I'll even promote you. But you have to do 2 things for me. You have to renounce the name of Jesus Christ, and you have to bow down and worship my gods. Valentine said, no can do, but let me tell you more about my God. The most insane, radical thing you can imagine, evangelizing to the head of the Roman world. Valentine shared the gospel with Caesar, and it didn't go well. However he thought it would go, it did not go well. In a fit of rage, Claudius orders Valentine thrown back in jail and put to death. Valentine spends his last days and last moments in the prison with the people who love him and respect him. Julia is filled with sorrow. They're all filled with sorrow at what they know will happen to a man they so love. Eventually, the fateful day comes and Valentine's led away to his execution. The jailer's going through his cell. He finds a letter with his daughter's name on it. He calls to Julia and says, "Julia, Valentine's left a letter for you." Julia grabs the letter and opens it for her father to read to her. Asterius starts with the first word, and then he hears Julia's voice utter the second. Something amazing just happened. Julia's eyes were opened by God in that moment to where she could see. For the first time in her life, she could see. Tears of joy run down her face, eventually coming to the end where it says, "Signed by your Valentine," which is where we get the tradition today. Saint Valentine was stoned and beheaded outside a gate in Rome. And though he was dead, his memory lived on in the minds and in the lives of the people that had mattered most to him and that he'd mattered most to. The young couples he'd married, the prisoners in the jail, Asterius and Julia and their family. Nobody would ever forget Saint Valentine. And that's why about 200 years later, Pope Gelasius of the Catholic Church decided that they would make Saint Valentine's Day a holy feast day for all time in the Christian Church. And it's been like that ever since, and will continue to be.